is the day we're waiting for. This will be the day we open up the door. And I don't know the rest of the words. Okay. So yeah, we're doing a spoiler discussion of RWBY. As always, if you watched the show, watch this. If you haven't, check out my spoiler-free review and take your opinions from there. So let's get started. So yeah, I guess this counts as anime. It's not made by Japanese people, but it's got the tiny noses. So RWBY was my favorite character out of this whole thing. I think she's a really good protagonist for this kind of a story. And while we're on the subject, I think that kind of brings up what I like about this show, and that's that a lot of it is played up to be very likable and just sort of very enjoyable. And I think she kind of exemplifies that. Because I like that when we meet her, you see her, and she is just beating the shit out of people. Like, she's got her giant scythe, which theoretically for someone that small shouldn't be possible to lift. But she does it anyway. She just beats up all the Torchwick's guys. And then it's just sort of like, you're joining this academy. And I kept waiting for that moment where we were going to find out she had like a parent or someone who was mauled to death by Grimm. And then when it turns out, no, she just likes weapons, she likes to build, she likes fighting, she likes to be the hero. I really was just like, even if this show fails, I like you, girl. And I just sort of liked the fact that it was a very subtle design, it wasn't like fan servicey or anything like that. She looked like what her personality would be. Which is what I sort of like. Lately, it's been do sort of like a generic look for everyone and then just pass it on. More in American TV than anything else. But here it was sort of like everyone looked unique to them, and it really helps the design stand out. Although it was sort of weird that RWBY has an American name and looks like she'd be Asian, and Yang has an Asian name and looks like she's white. What did you think of the other characters?
Who?
Well, like Weiss.
You mean Tsundere? For the first season, and then season 2 she opens up, and then season 3 she's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's typical shy girl.
Mm-hmm.
Who everyone likes because she's a cat girl.
Yeah. Wait, people like Blake?
Yeah, a lot of people like Blake.
I don't like Blake.
No.
Oh, look!
God, be more racist, Kevin.
What? How am I racist?
Because you don't like black characters.
What? No, I love black characters.
Then why don't you like Blake?
She doesn't say anything.
Okay.
Like, literally, I think someone counted and said she had 16 lines in season 1. And granted, season 1 has 4-minute-long episodes, but just in general, it's sort of disappointing with Blake because, well, first of all, let's talk about those trailers. Do you like the first 4 trailers they aired where every character got a trailer?
I like RWBY and Weiss's, but I don't like anyone else's.
Yeah. I did not like any of them. One thing I can't stand with this show is the way it's marketed. I don't like the fact that they try and make it seem like it's this big, epic, and it's not. This isn't an epic. This is a very much just small, character-driven, fun fantasy type thing. But they want to make it sound like it's the second coming of like Lord of the Rings. And
I never got that.
look at the openings, for Christ's sake.
Oh, okay, Kevin. Okay, let's look at the openings. All right, sure.
It's all epic rock and punk and like they're fighting a ton of bad guys.
Okay, same thing with Sword Art Online.
Yeah, but the difference in Sword
And Attack on Titan.
The difference in those two...
Almost half of the episodes are either filler or them not doing jack shit.
Yeah, but at least in those situations, the premises of the show set up for epicness and action tone. But for the most part, season 1 especially is just kind of a high school adventure. Which is fine! That's why I like it! I just don't like the idea that you make it look like it's this big, extreme, never-been-done-before thing, and you find out a lot of it is just sort of RWBY getting used to have to make friends, and Weiss learning to put her ego past her, and Blake learning to open up, and Yang having huge boobs. And I like that. I like that a lot. I think Rooster Teeth has proven with this show they're very good at making likable characters. Because you think about it, this show should not have worked. I thought for certain it was going to fall into like the typical traps that things like this fall into. Like, you know, all the characters are tortured and the plot is huge and dark, and that at some point it was going to turn out to be sort of, you know, or at some point it would turn into like a parody. Like, it's its own thing, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I generally like everyone, but Blake just sort of bothers me because she doesn't talk much at the beginning. And then when she does start talking, she's saying exposition. And then just out of nowhere, she's like, I'm a cat girl, and there are animal people in this show. And I was just sort of like, this came out of nowhere. But it didn't come out of nowhere because it's the reason Blake isn't talking, so it actually just makes it feel more predictable. Like, I wish Blake had more dialogue. Like, I don't dislike the character because I don't like the idea. I just don't like the character because she has nothing to do. She doesn't say much, and for the most part, she's just kind of there. She says a one-liner every 5 episodes, and that's it. Like, just in general, the plot, I think, if I were to pick a problem, I think the plot could have been shown better. And I do think it's the episode airtime is the problem. Like, look at season 1. There's literally an episode that just ends with Ruby in the air out of nowhere. And that was so distracting, because it was like, an episode would be 4 minutes long. And then it's 14 minutes in seasons 2 and 3, and then the end of season 3 is like 24 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if for season 4, like, it'll be like a full 25-minute show. Or if they'll go back to the time limit.
Probably a time limit.
I mean, look, it's tough. They don't have a lot of money, and I think the animation shows that.
I don't think it's money-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just their animation department is split between either RWBY, Red vs. Blue, and X-Ray and VAV. So it's honestly, I don't think it's money. I think it's just that their animation department, while a decent size, isn't enough to actually work on RWBY. Like, have enough people to work on RWBY.
And look, props to Rooster Teeth. They're very ambitious. Like, they're trying to do a lot of things, and I like the fact that they are, and I like the fact that it works here. But I don't think, look, the animation, it's not up to par with with mainstream things, but I think what it lacks in a lot, like, especially when they run, it doesn't look good. But then there's, like, a lot of cool stuff they do. Like, I remember the first time the Scythe comes out. That could have been just a simple example. It was like, no, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it shoots bullets, and just chopping things' heads off.
Yeah, which, everyone made the joke around season 1, but then it didn't get really enough steam. It picked up more steam in season 2 when it's like, oh, every weapon has to be either a sword or some type of blunt object, and then it turns into a gun. Like, there are guns that turn into even bigger guns. It's, like, stupid. That was the entire running joke throughout RWBY, was that every single weapon is a gun.
Yeah, when you think about it, it does to an extent make sense, like, for this world. Like, you would need that. I think this definitely, out of the whole sort of steampunk fantasy tech integration thing, this show, I think, probably does it the best. I think maybe it's a bit too early to say that, but the way it integrates all those elements, I think, is almost flawless. And I love the fight scenes in this show. They're so over the top, but they're so cool, and that's when the animation challenges work, because at least you can tell what's going on. It's not like a lot of things that have bad action scenes where they just sort of move the camera a lot, there's a lot of quick cuts. It's like, no, when a scene needs to stay on someone hurting someone, it stays there. And I think it's great. Like, you know, again, like I said, this could have gone into parody or too much the other way, but no, I found that right balance. I like, you know, the one thing, if I were to pick a complaint with the weapons, is dust serves no purpose in this story, does it?
I mean, it's...
Well, you think about it, they do that exposition dump at the beginning of episode 1 where it's like, dust, it helped make the world, but then the only character it affects is Weiss, and only just giving her sword weird powers.
A rapier.
Yeah. Which is such a weird
Which
word.
is literally, we don't see it do anything else besides just be a rapier, which is weird.
Yeah.
Because Blake has guns that turn into blades. Yang is just... has
brass knuckles that turn into guns.
Well, she has shotgun gauntlets.
Yeah.
RWBY has a scythe that turns into a gun. But Weiss, unless there's something I missed, her rapier is just a rapier that can do, like, dust things.
And we mostly only saw that dust thing in, like, the trailer for her. Like, for the most part, dust doesn't really play into anything. Because then when, like, in season 2, when the train with the bombs, those are just normal bombs. Those aren't dust bombs or anything like that. Everything is just sort of technical. I have a feeling when they started doing this, they weren't 100% certain where they wanted to take it. So they just sort of they put everything out there and then just decided whatever would work, they'd go with. Like, the other thing I didn't like is that, what's it called, semblance or something?
Yeah.
Like everyone has a weird mutant power thing that also doesn't really do much.
Yang's is literally Bide.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and then Blake was the only one where I felt like they did anything interesting with hers, where she could, like, make a copy of herself for a few seconds. Ruby's, I guess, is hers the whole tornado thing she can do, or is it the thing with the eyes at the end of season 3?
I don't really think they go into it all that much. I assume it's the eyes.
It would make sense, because then you could say, because she is 2 years younger than everyone else, you could be like, well, semblance tends to show up around the time you're 17. I would buy that, but that's never really explained. I felt like we would either get too much information at once or nothing. And I think that comes with not really sure what direction you want to go in. Or like another thing was, I feel like the minute we start talking about the ending of season 3, that's it. That's all we're going to talk about for the rest of the review, which is half over anyways at this point. Yeah, screw it. Let's go for it. Holy shit, the season